Following video is brought to you by the Boston Sports Entertainment Network. Please consider liking and subscribing for more Boston sports content.
I got the Boston Celtics going to the final.
I got them winning without.
It's time to represent your city. Put your hands up. Cali, you know we do it for Boston. Hey, ain't nobody ballin' like Boston. Yeah, hey, can't nobody do it like Boston. Where the legends get made, where the banners get raised, bright lights, big stage. Boston. All the fire we bring in a city full of rings, it's a beautiful thing out in Boston. And you ain't hard like that. You don't put it on the line with your squad like that. That's right, Boston. All we do is win like cigars in the gym, and we at it again. I say, Beantown, what's up? What's up? 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 Feel the energy shift, now we jumping at the gym. Represent, showing out how we ball above the rim. Larry Legend, 86, to the truth in 08. Cement your name with the all-time greats. Still banner 18 in the Raptors. Celtic green, only green that matters. It's about that time. Ain't another city that's louder than mine. Always gonna shine with the game on the line. What you think was gonna happen, man? That's how we do it in Boston. Ain't nobody gonna like Boston. Yeah, yeah. Can't nobody do it like Boston.
All right. Welcome in to this episode of the Dynasty Proud podcast brought to you by BSEN. I'm Ryan at 19_loading. And here with me, as usual, is my guy Alex at AlexZachary305. We're live today on this Tuesday, February 25th, following a Celtics beatdown of the New York Knicks on Sunday. And they are about to play in a matchup tonight with the Toronto Raptors at Scotiabank Arena at 7 p.m. Alex, since we last talked, two convincing wins against Philadelphia and New York. So I think, I guess we start with the Philly game. Where do we start with that one?
RIP to that rivalry that never really was a rivalry per Joel Embiid, but it's almost, and it's kind of like the Sixers and the Heat. Some of the fun of kicking the crap out of those teams has been taken away now. The Heat, just because, you know, the Jimmy Butler thing is over and it just, they don't feel competitive in a real sense. And then Philly, just because like that whole thing's just a complete disaster. And then you let the sportscasters talk themselves into Philly being a real threat this year because they added Paul George. You know, of course, their two best players are completely injury prone. Although right now I think honestly Maxey is their best player, but like Paul George and Embiid can't stay on the floor. You know, we came back from 26 down against their scrubs, you know, about a month back. And this game, you figure they're going to take more seriously because, you know, they actually had stars out there. And the Celtics just won convincingly over them. It's not even a fair fight anymore. That process, all those years of tanking were supposed to be to lead to get that team like over the hump. And they couldn't get it done the year they had Jimmy and they had like 4 stars. They couldn't get it done any of the years where they had Harden. They have Paul George now and they're worse. And, you know, Embiid looks like, you know, he could retire at this point. Like, he just can barely move. Like, you know, from draft blunders, like every wrong thing you can do as a franchise. And they still figuratively landed on their feet several times and they just can't move forward. And if you're the Sixers, I think you have a pick that you're giving away to OKC this year that's top 6 protected. I think they'd be irresponsible on multiple fronts to not tank at this point. Like, what's the best case scenario here? Like, you're going to end up in the play-in, maybe play Cleveland or Boston in the first round. Realistically, you're not winning that series. You risk further hurting Embiid at this point to the point where he's not even like useful in the future to you, either as a trade asset or on the floor, and you lose a draft pick. You get top 6 in the draft. Maybe the lottery goes your way. You get a Cooper Flag. You can rebuild. You can pivot. Or you get, you know, like a Bailey. Like you get somebody like that you can do something with. I just think that team's going nowhere fast, and the only thing they can do that's smart right now would be to shut Embiid down. Honestly, shut Paul George down too. Just play like the young kids because McCain's already out for the year, and just hope for the best. But as far as the Celtics are concerned, like convincing victory. It's always fun beating Philly. It's always fun that the Celtics take over that entire arena. It's kind of sad for Philly that they can't get fans in their own arena. I mean, the team kind of helps out that a lot as well. But even last year in the playoffs against the Knicks, in a playoff series, Knicks fans were taking over that arena. So kind of sad for the Philly fans. I guess you just won the Super Bowl, but your basketball team sucks.
And we'll get into the Embiid, we'll get into the Embiid stuff more in depth in a second. And PG too. I mean, they both kind of look like shells of themselves right now. The Celtics in that game, they hit 24 threes out of 54. Philly hit just 8 of 39. So that certainly helped the cause as far as just as the way that the script of the game goes. But I mean, there was plenty of other stuff that was just clear that Celtics are obviously so much of a better team. Tatum had 15 points, 11 boards, 10 assists. I think it was his 4th career triple-double, plus 19. He was only 5 of 13 from the floor. And specific to him, I mean, this just shows how elite of a player he is, because when the shot's not falling, he still finds other ways to impact the game. And he can have an off night shooting the ball. He'll still D up, distribute the ball, crash the glass, whatever's needed. He just does whatever is required to win the game, which is one of the reasons I love Tatum. And I put a whole bunch of stuff in my notes about, the comparison between him and a guy like Shea, who's going to win the MVP. We can talk about this maybe over the summer, because we don't have to talk about it right now. But Tatum to me is so much of a better all around basketball player than Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. And the gist of my point with this is, all time, Shea's not even going to sniff Tatum. Tatum's going to be the better player historically, and people are going to be like, "Wow, we really thought Shea was better than him." Anyway, Pritchard was electric in this game too. 8 of 15 from 3. He proved why he's the clear favorite for the 6th man of the year. Maxey, on the other side, he was just okay. 16 points, 5 boards, 7 assists. Other than that, they had nothing, absolutely nothing. And as we said, Joel Embiid it's actually getting kind of sad right now. And I think you saw after the game, I posted a video of Al Horford just having a heart-to-heart with Embiid after the game. I don't know what he was saying to him, but I can only imagine.
Beautiful father-son moment.
But without being the person that he is, he was giving him real life advice. It probably had nothing to do with basketball. And it, to me, it's legit getting sad for Embiid, because his body's just not holding up for him right now.
Yeah, I think the only thing you can do is it's almost kind of give it one last shot. And I mentioned prior, you got to shut him down. You can't let him risk injury further to himself to get a play-in seed where you're really going nowhere at the expense of a draft pick, at the expense of your future. If Embiid further hurts himself, you give it one more shot, let him recover, and either use him as a trade chip this summer or make another, last gash effort with him before you pivot. But it's not the guy. His career is always going to be a big what if. But the thing is, everyone, will complain oh, well, wasn't healthy in this playoff series. He's never healthy. He doesn't take care of himself. It's just, everything is more important than basketball. I don't know. It's just, if you look at guys like Tatum that are just so durable, that just the gym is their life, the game is their life. Embiid doesn't have that same drive, that same will. And so, who knows what Al was telling him. I know he played there for a year. I mean, I don't think they're the best of friends, but it looked like it was genuine when Al was talking to him. So we'll see what happens there. Philly is not a threat at all. It was like last year when Embiid was hurt for a while and he came back. A lot of people kind of wanted to avoid Philly first round, because you're this is not a 7 or 8 seed team. That was a much better team than that. They were just that seed because Embiid got hurt, but he was playing at an MVP level last year before his injury, and he was starting to get back into form. That was the hesitation last year. This year, he doesn't look like that player at all, even when he does play. He's a shell of himself. He can barely move. You just watch him play. It is sad, as you mentioned. So one more point I wanted to get to, though, when you're talking about Shea versus Tatum, it's crazy the way they get talked about. Shea's this ascending young superstar, and then Tatum's this old vet that finally got over the hump when they're 8 months apart in age. And Tatum has all these career accolades, and they're both 26. They get talked about Tatum's 35 and then Shea is 22. That's really the discussion between the two of them. And that Tatum just walked onto the 96 Bulls, and that Shea was, pretty much playing in the worst teams in NBA history. And that he brought them up there, and that Tatum was holding that Bulls team back. It's insane talk. And then just all the whole aura and corny and all that crap that people, Twitter losers throw out there. But Tatum's a better player. He has a better career. If they ended, if they both retired right now, Tatum's a Hall of Famer. Shea isn't. And then the accolades are going to keep coming. Tatum's going to win multiple championships. Yes, Shea could. He has a great team around him, and they have the most draft assets in the league with Sam Presti running the show. So he could win a lot. But I like the way Tatum plays better. I think he's a better two-way player. I think he's a better all-around player. Yeah, Shea's an elite scorer. Shea's also a free throw merchant. And it's almost unethical the way, almost like Embiid at times. Like we just, try, like you saw in the All-Star game when they're warming up, a guy like barely graced him, and his natural reaction is just to kind of like throw himself off, almost like Jalen Brunson. Tatum doesn't play like that. Tatum, on the other hand, gets like the worst superstar whistle in the league and gets the shortest leash with officials as far as like technicals. So I don't think and he even asked Tatum today, he said he doesn't think he gets the respect that he deserves. And a lot of that is because the name on the front of his jersey and his last name. If you just put his accolades and it just says player A, and that's Tatum, everyone would be like, oh, this is unquestionably first ballot Hall of Famer. Like, we're witnessing greatness. But because it's Jason Tatum of the Boston Celtics, people won't acknowledge it.
Yeah, and like I said, I think we can, use that for something to talk about over the summer when there's like absolutely nothing to talk about. I think that would be a great thing.
Once the Celtics parade is done and we're going into free agency.
Because, I'm sure by then we'll know all the awards and we can complain all we want about how Jason Tatum doesn't get the respect that he probably should. And Shea gets more than he probably should, even though, he's a great player. And I don't mean to, downplay how good he is. It's just like you said, if you just did a blind player A, player B, I don't think it would even be close. Anyway, so yeah, getting back to the Philly stuff. The other thing that I just thought was interesting in this game, like it wasn't even remotely close, like plus minus wise with the Philly guys. Maxey was a minus 25, PG a minus 24, and Embiid a minus 20. Like it just was, they were running circles around him. It was pretty sad to see. Then they played the Knicks after that, and they obviously had another pretty convincing win in that one. And the thing I loved about that game was the 3-point shooting was actually just about even. The Celtics shot 8 more and made 3 more, but percentage-wise, the teams both shot about 39%. But the Celtics still found ways to just, as with Philly, just run circles around the Knicks on the defensive end. The Celtics shot almost 50% from the floor in that one. And this is the main point that stood out to me from the Knicks game was Karl-Anthony Towns. Like I recognize that he has never been considered a good defender by any means, but like I've been watching a few Knicks games recently outside of the Celtics games. He just looks really sluggish, and some news just came out about him injury wise too. Which, this is before I even wrote all this stuff down, but I think this is the Tibbs effect. I really do, because his minutes per game are up significantly. He's at 35.1 this year versus 32.7 this year or last year. He has not played over 35 minutes per game since 2017-18. He's played in 52 of their 57 games. And this is both before the All-Star break and after. He just looks really sluggish, and he's more or less unplayable against the Celtics. So it's something that they need to figure out for sure.
The Celtics just hunt him and Brunson on matchups and switches every single time. And that's the reason that the team like the Celtics will obliterate the Knicks in a playoff series. The Knicks have their record. Yes, they do have talent, but the Knicks have their record because they play every game of the season like it's the playoffs per Tibbs. They're playing guys heavy minutes in a regular season game, playing everybody on back-to-backs because they're going to get every ounce of juice out of them during the season. It's going to up their record. But when you come to an actual matchup against the Celtics, it's just like you don't have to know anything about these two teams. If you watch them on the floor, one team is clearly superior than the other. Like you can't, there's no mismatches on the other end. Like, yes, they have really good offensive players, the Knicks, but the Celtics can defend everybody. You're not going to stop them every single time, but they can hold their own against anybody. Versus the other end, you have two very, very big weak spots, Brunson and Cat on the defensive end. And then on top of that, to your point with Tibbs just running everybody into the ground with minutes wise, yes, like some of it's like bad luck with some of the injuries that they have, but other it's like wear and tear. Like you consistently play guys such heavy minutes, you're just asking for an injury to happen. And that's what's going to happen to them. And which is like the Knicks and Celtics are almost locked into their positions. Like, yes, of course, any team could run the table the rest of the way or lose every single game. But like barring something very unforeseen, it looks like the Knicks and Celtics are going to be in the 2-3 spot. Celtics in the 2, Knicks in the 3. If that's the case, I'm like licking my chops at that second round matchup. Like everyone's going to talk that up. Like Celtics and Knicks, you're going to get all like the things from like the past. You'll have everyone talking it up for a 5-game series. You're going to have the Tony Brothers legacy game in there, or you're going to have one game where it's just you just can't. They can't shoot. They can't hit anything. But overall, that just is like a very, very favorable matchup. Honestly, if we played a team like Orlando, I'd be more like afraid of them. Like a team that plays hard, a team that's long, a team that's young, that's athletic, like that doesn't have holes defensively. Like the Knicks, like yes, they have scorers, but like I can't see that team beating us twice. Let alone like, yeah, Cat looks better on paper, and then when you watch him hit like 30-foot threes and stuff, like he's a much more skilled offensive player. But that team strikes no fear into me. And just watching the game, like yeah, the first two matches were complete blowouts, and this one was heading in that direction. The Knicks made their fake run, and I don't even want to call it fake because it wasn't like they cut it from 27 to 12. Like they cut it from 27 down to like 4, early into the fourth quarter. But it's like the Celtics every single time they're like, okay, like they went through the motions like human nature. They got a big lead. The other team's playing harder. They're kind of going softer. You took Tatum out, some of the starters out, and the Knicks really made their run, playing their starters the entire way. Eventually, they ran out of gas. The Celtics started hitting their shots, and then it's just like the second the avalanche started in the other direction, it just went away from them. I don't fear this team at all. If you were to list like teams I fear in the East, honestly, they're like 5th or 6th in the East. No matter how good they are or how good their players are, like that team does nothing to me. And honestly, they'd be much better off finishing in the 4th seed. Not that Cleveland wouldn't kick their ass too. I think they have a much better shot against Cleveland. I think they have no shot against us. But it's not even a homer take. That's just I have 2 eyes and I watch all these games take.
And this is something I put out on Twitter after this most recent Knicks game. I can't remember a set of 2 teams that were so close together record-wise that were so clearly different. Like the Celtics are so much better than the Knicks that the records of those 2 teams being so close together does not make any sense to me. Like they are, I think, 4 games apart right now. And I can't.
But we have the tiebreaker, and there's like
right.
23, 24 games left. So it's like barring something unforeseen, they're not going to catch us. But I
No.
agree with what you're saying.
But the point behind it is like I know that the Knicks have talented players, and I guess they're cleaning up on teams that aren't as good as them. But I don't get how that team is on pace to win as many games as they are. You know what I mean? Like it just doesn't. They don't seem to be that good of a team.
No, and it's like I referenced, and you did say that as well. Like they're beating up on bad teams. Like honestly, I'd probably trust the Knicks against a bad team more than us because the Knicks are going to play hard and take every game seriously. But the Celtics can literally turn it on. Like they're like, okay, this is the Knicks. We want to show out. It's national TV. We're going to kick their ass, and that's what they can do. Like the Knicks don't have that mode. The Knicks aren't good enough, and they're beating up on bad teams, and they're playing their guys heavy minutes to win every single game. They're nowhere near the same level as the Celtics. There's like a clear tier, and I'd put multiple teams in between the Celtics and the Knicks.
This has been a brewing thought that I've had for a while now. I think that Tom Thibodeau would be a fantastic college coach.
Yeah.
But
he's like
the
Coach
NBA, at the NBA, I don't think it works. I think it's pretty much proven at this point that it doesn't work. Anyway, you know how I feel about the Cleveland Cavaliers as well, because we don't have to relitigate a lot of this stuff as well. But they're 6 games ahead of the Celtics in the standings. I don't really trust them, but do you think there's anybody in the East that is a legitimate threat, like in a 7-game series that we should really be afraid of as Celtics fans?
No, and I probably should have written this down so I could have actually detailed what I want to say out better. But there's different levels. Like there's an annoyance tier, which is Orlando. I'd even put Indiana, although they're better than Orlando, but they're going to play hard. They're going to make you fight. If you don't want to take the game, they will take it from you. But you just have so much more talent than them where they may take a game or 2 off of you because of that, but you're just a clearly superior talented team. Then you have teams like the Knicks that we reference, and the Cavs that they're more talented, but the Knicks is the next level where it's just they're more talented, but I think there's a mental thing with the Celtics too. They don't think they can beat us. They know they can't beat us. Even just listening to their post-game comments, they have no confidence to beat us. Where I don't think that would be a long series either. The Cavs are a better team than them, and they've shown it this season, but it looks like a regular season team. Why that team gets the benefit of the doubt, but the Celtics teams that went very heavily deep into the playoffs and then added stars didn't get the benefit of the doubt. The Cavs the last 2 postseasons, they lost in 5 to the Knicks 2 years ago in the first round, Last year they lost in 5 to us in the second round. Like, why does that team get the benefit of the doubt? It's mostly the same players. Yes, they added DeAndre Hunter. No, he's not this like defensive stalwart that he's being made out to be. But yeah, he's a good wing. He's a better player than Karis LeVert. He has a higher ceiling than Karis LeVert. I'll say that. But I think Karis LeVert is a better defender. But either way, like everyone's gearing up to stop the Celtics. I think if they take the Cavs seriously, that does not go more than 6, if it even goes 6. Like they're just better because the Cavs have 2 weaknesses as well. They like their defensive backcourt is weak. Like they have Donovan Mitchell and they have Darius Garland. Yes, Mitchell particularly can take over a game as well as anybody in the NBA when it really needs to. But defensively, those two can't get stops, and they're going to get switched on to people. You don't like you're going to switch on like maybe outside of the Pritchard minutes, and Pritchard's fighting, but like Pritchard's not playing in the clutch if you're healthy. Down the stretch of a playoff game, you're gonna have D. White, you're gonna have Drew Holiday, you're gonna have Tatum, Brown, Porzingis, Horford. Like you can switch all of those matchups. So no team in the East really scares me. Like if it's even last year, like I think for some people, just because they had been through it, like the Heat were kind of the boogeyman with Jimmy Butler, and I was the one saying like I'm afraid of this team. Like this is a different Celtics team, and that was kind of a fluke last year. Even with Jimmy healthy, I don't think I would have changed that. But there was in the back of some people's mind, it's like, okay, you get the Heat, like you never know. Like I don't think there's any team that has any sort of mental edge over the Celtics, especially in the East. Like I just think they're so clearly above everybody else. Like first of all, the Cavs have to get there, and I just realized I missed the Bucks. Like the Bucks actually might have a high ceiling. I just think they have a low floor. Like the Bucks, if you were to tell me like because they're going to finish likely in the 4 or 5 position, that the Bucks beat the Cavs in round 2. And that Giannis or Dame was the best player in that series, it's easy to believe. You could also believe that they lose in 5 or 6 to the Indiana in round 1, like last year. Like either of those two things that happen, I think they're the biggest wild card because you really don't know what you're going to get from them. Like, yes, they don't have Middleton anymore, and they have Kyle Kuzma, who's not Middleton, but Kyle Kuzma will actually be playing as opposed to Middleton, who you didn't know. So I think the Bucks are the biggest wild card. If you were to tell me to rank the teams, if you were to say, okay, the Celtics lose in the playoffs, who do you think knocked them out? I would say either the Cavs or the Bucks. But yeah, let me see. Bucks. I know
this
they're
is
up and
this is
down
from
because
Nick.
I can't imagine
So,
Giannis in a series is fun. Yeah. So I was just getting to the Bucks, and I agree with the Giannis factor. But it's also if you watch the Bucks series against the Heat 2 years ago, Giannis wants nothing to do with the ball at the end of the game, and he was throwing the ball away because he's afraid to go to the free throw line in the clutch. And that's another thing with our team. Everybody's a great or like good to great free throw shooter. There's nobody you have to hide. From the free throw line at the end of the game. There's only to hide defensively. Like we're obviously the most well-rounded team, but if I were to list who I think could beat us, I would be the Bucks. Honestly, probably first. Shout out Nathan. Cavs probably second because I think they're a better team. I just think the Bucks have a higher ceiling, but their floor is much lower. What do you think, Ryan?
Yeah. So I mean, with Cleveland, I'm glad that you brought up DeAndre Hunter too, because this is the thing for me. There's a reason Atlanta was willing to dump him, right? He's a nice player. He's a scorer. He's he's good on the defensive end. He's not like elite. But to me, I don't know that he's a winning player. Per game this year, he's a minus 0.8 on the floor. And I know he was on the Hawks, who like are not having the greatest year, but I just people use this term a lot, and I usually don't love it, but he's kind of a net negative. Like I don't know what he does that really impacts winning. But as you said with Milwaukee, they're the team to me that is the biggest threat, and there's a lot of ifs involved, but there's a lot of reasons that I believe that to be the case. Giannis has won a championship before. Damian Lillard has not, but he's one of the great clutch players of all time. He's not a choker by any means. He's just never been on a team like this, before when he was in Portland. They have lost Bobby Portis to that suspension, which is not ideal. But they've added.
Bucks fans got their wish too. They didn't want him around.
Yeah,
so
I know.
now they're going to see life without Bobby.
And Nick says Giannis is a much better clutch player this year thanks to the mid range. Yeah. So, but anyway, getting back to the Buck stuff, the role players that they have, like Kuzma is obviously an upgrade over the corpse of Chris Middleton. Kevin Porter Jr. has been playing great for them in his role recently. And they still have Taurean Prince and Gary Trent, who are guys that could easily get hot in a series, even if they're not like elite players. And Brooke Lopez has looked great over the last week or so. I know they have Doc Rivers, so that's a plus for the Celtics. But all in all, I just think the Bucks are the clearest and most obvious threat to the Celtics in the East. And I know that sounds kind of ridiculous with Cleveland having the record that they do. But it's based more on the depth of the roster, the championship experience, and all that. Like, that's why, and I felt that way about the Bucks all year. Like, I've been saying that since before the season, and you know that from the past podcasts that we've done. Other teams in the East, the Pacers are a team that I think would be a pain in the butt to play, but I don't think there's any reason to believe they could beat Boston in 7 games. And after that, in the standings, there's no one. The Pistons, we can already throw out the Knicks because it's clear that they can't compete with the Celtics.
The Knicks better hope that the Bucks with Bobby Portis out don't fall to 6, because the Knicks actually might go home round 1 if that's the case.
Yeah. Well, and if Cat is out for any extended period of time, they could slip too. And who knows where they finish in this.
I think they'd love to finish outside of 3 and avoid us as long as possible.
You're not wrong. And maybe that's part of their thinking too. I think Reggie Miller actually said something about that on the broadcast. He's like, I think they should go for the 4 seed. I'm pretty sure he said something about that. Anyway, after that in the standings, like after the 4th seed, it's like Pistons, Magic, Hawks, Heat, Bulls. Like, none of those teams are going to compete with the Celtics in 7 games. And maybe I'm wrong. I'll have egg on my face if we see the Celtics lose in round 1 to one of these teams. But
I think all of us would, and I'd probably deactivate my profile. So
right, like I don't think It's not like we're throwing out hot takes here by saying that the Celtics should beat the Hawks in round 1.
We got the Andrew Wiggins Heat, Andrew Wiggins, Davion Mitchell Heat, Kyle Anderson Heat. So the one thing over there is Tyler Hero's turned into a nice player.
Hero has looked
more than I thought he
awesome.
would, but that's a team that's a 5-game series, very, very max. If they have another like out of body shooting experience, but like, yeah, that's 4 or 5 games. Like, I can't honestly see any first round series going past 5, other than like you get an Orlando team that's like motivated with a good Paolo, and like maybe they take 2 off of you. But I think the Celtics are we so locked in that the physicality may bother them, but ultimately they have much more talent, and that'll win out.
Yeah, and I mean, I think we're assuming health in all these scenarios. Like, obviously,
and knock on wood, as we say every week, Porzingis has been healthy for a long duration now. So
yeah, I think we need to send up some prayers that continues. Let's see. So the next game after tonight, I know we already talked about. Well, actually, we haven't really talked about the Raptors game tonight, so we can get into that. So the Raptors, this is such a funny team to me because they're 18-39, but against the spread, they are 33-22-2. Like, they play so hard. They have guys with talent. The note I made about these guys is this is one of the better teams that I can remember that won't even come close to winning 30 games. Like, they play good team ball. There's no true superstar. They play like Scotty Barnes and RJ Barrett do a lot of the offensive carrying. They play so many guys: Grady Dick, Ochai Agbaji, Chris Boucher, Jonathan Mobo, the rookie who's a rotational guy for them, and Emmanuel Quickly is now coming back and looking pretty good for them too. You can't lay down against this team. And because the Celtics are playing the Pistons tomorrow night, it's the first night of a back-to-back. They have no Drew Holiday, no Luke Cornett. Horford is out. There's a little bit of a look-ahead factor because the Pistons have won 7 straight games. So, like, the Celtics are obviously the better team. I just don't want to see them get trapped tonight. I'd really like to see them take care of this game and have it over with in like 3 quarters and just like be able to rest everybody, go home, and get ready for tomorrow, because that would be the ideal setup for me.
Yeah, I think we had another podcast right before a Raptors game where we had the same thought process. We're like, don't let this team hang around. Because we had just beat them by like 56 a couple of weeks prior. And then we come and we play like a-holes in Toronto. We just go through the motions, and then everyone starts hitting shots for them. Jaylen Brown just didn't look like he wanted to even be in the country of Canada that night. Like, they were checked out. And so my hope is that because they'll be a little shorthanded, and because of what happened last time, and because they won 9 out of 10, they seem to mentally just be like really laser focused and locked in right now, that they're going to take care of business and it would be great if they just, kick their butt early and we can just start resting guys for the fourth quarter and for tomorrow. I'd like to think that's going to happen. I'd like to think we've turned a corner, but it's human nature. We've been on this long losing streak. We're getting close to the playoffs. It's the Raptors in the first night of a back-to-back against an ascending team in Detroit, who I actually forgot to mention. We're naming all the teams in the East because Detroit just naturally doesn't come to mind.
I know.
When you think of
Yeah, you're
potential
right about that,
contender.
actually.
I actually want to throw them in there real quick while we jump ahead and look at that game. I'm assuming we'll get Horford back tomorrow because he was going to play one game of the back-to-back. Hopefully that doesn't mean they're sitting Porzingis. But, like you can understand if they want to be careful with him. Like one regular season game against Detroit is not end-all be-all. If they want to rest Porzingis, obviously you'd understand if they want to do that. Take carefully with them. That's another team, though. Like they have good players. And then Malik Beasley is having a great year for them. Kate Cunningham's having a great year. Like that's another team where they're at 6th seed in the standings right now. It looks like they've got a little bit of separation between 6 and 7. So I don't think we're going to end up seeing them. You never know. Maybe they go on a losing streak and one of the teams in the play-in gets hot and jumps up to 6. But yeah, I mean, I don't think we're going to end up seeing Detroit this year. So maybe that's why mentally I wasn't thinking about them. But on a single game basis in Detroit in the second night of a back-to-back, they could definitely beat us. So you have to come with the right mindset. Hopefully, because we're planning ahead, rotation-wise for tomorrow, hopefully they'll take it more seriously. And not just it's the Detroit Pistons, it's these Detroit Pistons. So, I mean, actually looking forward to that. And hopefully the guys have their legs for tomorrow for that game.
I don't even know if it is the Detroit Pistons. I think it's just Cade Cunningham. I've been saying all year.
Beasley's been really good this year as well, though.
Well, yes, he has. But Cade, and I was somebody that did not really believe in him as the number 1 overall pick coming into the league. I have flipped the script on that because I've been saying all year, he's not just an all-star, he's all NBA. He is the engine for that team. And Beasley's helping a lot scoring wise, and they need that. Tobias Harris, he can have 2 points or 22. He's all over the map. So you can't let him get going because he will kill you if you let him.
Tobias, first player in the NBA.
Sorry, it cut out. I couldn't hear you.
Oh, I said Tobias Harris, the most average player in the NBA.
Yes. Yeah, no, I think he's literally he's the average height, average points, average everything. He's just Mr. Average. Makes a lot of money though. Yeah. So that should be a really good game. I'm looking forward to that one tomorrow night for sure. And then they do have the Cavs on Friday. And I know we talked a little bit about them. I've gone as far as to refer to them as the Clevelanta Cavaliers because I just don't, I don't know. Again, I can have egg on my face real easy with this team because maybe they do beat the Celtics. I don't know. But they are 47-10, number 1 seed, on pace for 67 wins. They just don't strike me as the type of roster that should win 67 games. I don't really see – I don't get how teams don't beat them. Memphis is a team that I would expect to be a better matchup for them. The Rockets did just beat them about a month ago, and the Celtics beat them on February 4th. But those are their only 2 losses since the middle of January. So I guess you have to give them credit for beating the opponents that are in front of them. But I still hold the feeling that in a 7-game series that it's going to belong to the Celtics until proven otherwise.
Absolutely. And I think that's a team that they have not earned the benefit of the doubt just because of their shortcomings. And I get it. They're a younger team that is ascending, but I think that if you ask me what's as a better chance of happening, the Cavs not even making the conference finals or the Cavs beating the Celtics in the conference finals, I would go with the first one. There's a chance they don't get there depending on, if they get Bucks round 2, that's a coin flip series to me. I don't think they're the heavy favorites in that series, assuming, health on both sides. I don't see that team even taking this to a game 7. When you watch the games, the Celtics have clearly looked like the better team in all 3 matchups. The only reason it's not 3-0 Celtics right now is because Donovan Mitchell went for 20 plus in or 19 points in the fourth quarter, in very quick order, and just completely took over that game. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we were missing Jaylen Brown and either White or Holiday or Porzingis. We were missing 2 players that night. It might have been Jaylen Brown and Porzingis. And it was in Cleveland, and it came down right to the end of Donovan Mitchell having that out-of-body experience, which he could definitely do again for sure. But I just can't see that happening 4 times out of 7 a series. I can't see it happening 3 times out of 7. To me, that's best case scenario for Cleveland is all the games are competitive, or most of the games are competitive, and that goes 6. That's I honestly, unless the Celtics have a major injury, and by that, not even Porzingis, Tatum or Brown, and honestly Tatum, if they lose Tatum, for a duration of time, I can't see Cleveland. I just don't think they're good enough. I really don't. But like I said, could have egg in your face. I could have it as well. It's until they prove it, I don't think they've earned the benefit of the doubt, particularly against a team like the Celtics. But Friday night's the last time they're going to match up, potentially this season, but at the very least in the regular season. So it'll be fun to watch.
Yeah. The other thing that the Celtics do to Cleveland is that they just abuse Darius Garland. And it's not his fault, but he's just too small. He's a small guy. He's slight. He doesn't have the strength to knock around with guys like Tatum and Brown and Derek White and Drew Holiday. Like, those guys are all so much bigger than him. And like, where else are you going to put him on? Porzingis? Like, no.
Kind of like how they did to Kyrie in the finals, like the same way they played him.
Because how do you hide him? You really can't. The Celtics have somebody. They have somebody that they can, get matched up with him, and that's really what the Celtics do with the whole killer whale offense thing. Is they swing the ball around, they set screens, they get favorable matchups, and they take advantage. That's the whole idea. And it's not groundbreaking, but it's the right thing to do for this team with the level of talent that they have. If Pritchard is out there, Garland can stick with him, but in a playoff series, he's going to get exposed as he kind of has in the past. And like I said, it's not his fault. He's a really good player. He's fun to watch. I just don't think that he's going to be able to keep up with what the Celtics are going to do to him in a playoff series. And we already talked about DeAndre Hunter too, the way I feel about him. I think I said this before, not exactly the most hot takey podcast by us. Celtics greater than everybody else in the East. We're not scared. What a riveting conversation.
And if we go to the West, and we'll start with Denver actually, because we play them on Sunday, which will be before our next podcast. Honestly, if you're asking me, like, all teams like full health come to, like, I honestly would still put Denver at number one, even though like everyone was talking about regression going into this. Like, I think they're at the very least they're right up there. Like, everyone kind of wrote them off earlier, but like you still have the three-time MVP in Jokic, who's, if it's not Shea, could be him again. Like, they look like they're coming into their own right now. They've been winning. They've won like 8 out of 9 or 9 out of 10, something like that lately. Like, they've looked really good. If Denver's healthy in the playoffs, you can't write them off. Like, they have more experience and they won a title than a team like OKC, so them, and especially over a team like Houston that's young, like Memphis, but they haven't necessarily done it in the postseason either. Like, that's a team, if I had to rank teams of like, not fear, but like, who I think could be, I'd say they're up there. I'd say Golden State now with Jimmy. Granted, they're lower in the standings, so we'll see. But I don't necessarily know that standings are going to mean anything in the West come postseason. Like, it's just going to be a free-for-all. Like, Oklahoma City, even though as dominant as they are, like, they haven't proven anything in the postseason, so it's going to be fun to watch in the West. And it's like, and then it's almost like Larry Bird coming to 3-point competition. Like, who wants to finish second in the East? Like, who wants the honor of getting to lose to us in the conference finals?
Yeah. And I was just about to pull up the standings in the West too, because like you said, like it should be really interesting.
The Lakers with Luka and LeBron, like, see how that all plays out. They look a little bit better as well.
They look a lot better. And if I don't even know what time is the game tonight. It's
10 o'clock.
Okay,
good. The
I
late
can
game,
watch
but
I can watch that after this.
I'm sure the league would love Celtics Lakers or Celtics Warriors if it could, like, or Celtics Nuggets in third. Like, honestly,
Yes.
even more than Celtics Thunder. Even with them ascending, I think the bigger names, the bigger franchises, like, the league would kind of pull for. I mean, they'd like the Knicks.
Sorry, internet cut out there for a sec. Anyway, so we were talking about Denver on Sunday. That's obviously a big one that's coming up, and like, I don't know if you might have already addressed this because I think my feed was cutting out a little bit. But what are you looking for in that one? Like, what do the Celtics need to do in that game?
I think that's because, like, that was the only team we lost to twice last year, but those games were both really good games right down to the end, nail biters. Like, just the way they play that team, like, you can tell they respect them when they play them, and they understand, like, what a big game it is. And it's another Sunday marquee, afternoon matchup on ABC, which I'll be stuck at work, but I'll still be trying to find a way to watch it. But yeah, I think they'll take it seriously. I want to see how they look against them. We have like the two, like, that's why tonight is like, how do the Celtics look tonight? Are they focused in it? Because, you have the back-to-back with a better team tomorrow, and then you have the Cavs at home on Friday, and then the Nuggets at home on Sunday. So you have these big games coming up. So let's see how seriously they take it tonight. But with that game, how do they look against Jokic? Like, just the eye test from watching them last year. Like the Celtics were the team that like had something to prove. The Nuggets already had proven it, and I just want to see how they look against Denver and like just the eye test of watching like who looks like the better team between the two of them. But that should be a fun matchup to watch. I hope I can get to watch it.
Yeah, definitely. My last thing I was just going to say is I still don't think it's impossible for the Celtics to grab the 1 seed. I know I've been saying that all year, but I don't know.
6 games with 25 to go. It's going to be hard.
It's going to be hard. There's no doubt. But I haven't even looked at Cleveland's schedule, but they've played some cupcakes recently. So I just hope that they run into some tough games.
I think they care too much about the regular season. Where I don't think they're going to lose enough. Like if they won 500, let's say they have 24 games left. If they went 12-12, we would have to, assuming we win against them on Friday and have the tiebreaker, we would have to go 19-6 to pass them. And that's if they won 500. So it's not looking promising, that thing, but I don't think we need it. I think honestly, like we've said, I trust them more on the road. Anyways, they don't need the 1 seed. That's something that like a team like Cleveland definitely needs more.
You're not wrong. Especially, like you said, like the Celtics are so much, they're better on the road. And we've talked about that on past podcasts too. Whatever the reason for that might be, it's true. So they definitely don't need home court. But I think we've covered just about everything. I know we're not quite at, game time yet, but is there anything else you wanted to hit on before we wrap up for tonight?
No, I think we got everything covered. Just as I referenced, moments ago, like I'm interested to see how seriously they take this game and like about putting it away, especially with like the back-to-back and the big matchups coming up. Like this would be a game that like if they just played full team CTE ball, it'd be like so predictable almost because of like that's just been the MO of this team. Again, like this just has trap game written all over it for them. But I think because they're more locked in and because they did lose to Toronto for the same reason last time, I like to think that they're taking it more seriously this time and they're going to come out on top and they're going to win by double digits. But as you mentioned, against the spread stuff, like who knows? As long as you get the W and nobody gets hurt in the meantime and you don't have to go to like double overtime with this team, then that's all that matters.
No Cornette, no Horford. Take the over on Jakob Poeltl rebounds.
Well, I would take the under on that since he won't be playing tonight. He's out tonight.
Never mind.
Well, yeah. Do not take the over on Jakob Poeltl rebounds.
Don't listen to me.
Place that bet.
Don't listen to me. I'm awful at betting. That's why I don't do it. It's not legal here in Georgia, so I guess that's why I don't pay attention to it. But you're right. He is out. So I don't know. Take the over on somebody else's rebounds for the Raptors.
Chris Boucher, yeah.
So anyway, all right. I think like you said, we hit on everything. Tip-offs at 7 again, or allegedly at 7 against the Raptors. Who knows? Sometimes it goes to 7:15 up in Toronto. But for those of you who have tuned in before the game, we thank you all for listening. Enjoy the game. Hopefully next time we're talking about a whole bunch of W's with some tough games coming up between Detroit, Cleveland, Denver, all that stuff. We appreciate y'all tuning in, and we will catch you next time.
Ends tonight here. It's over. Time to say it again, Boston. Anything's possible. Banner number 18 has been secured. The Celtics are NBA champions.